My mum come from Hemel Hempstead. My dad's from Iran. And sadly, a year or so after my birth, they split up. And I happened to end up in a children's home in Berkhamsted. I've got two brothers, Shane and Mark, and wherever we went, or wherever I went as a child, they went with me. The only children's home that would keep us together as a group, three boys, was the Roman Catholics. And so my dad put us in a Roman Catholic children's home. And we didn't study or learn anything about Sunday school or what God was like. But I always did ask questions about Jesus, because within the Catholic Church they do certain things, a lot of ceremony. And I saw the fact that Jesus suffered. And as a little boy, I wondered why Jesus suffered, why he was beaten, why he was crucified. No one answered my question, but I wondered about it, And I think that question, I carried it with me throughout my life, really. My dream was to have a happy family. When I went to birthday parties as a little boy, I would go to my friends' houses and I'd see how a normal family operated. And I always wondered, I thought, well, how comes I don't have that? So it was something I really yearned for. And when my dad met this lady, my dream came true. And I'd got a mum, got a little brother, and we moved out the home and moved into a house in Warner's End, Hemel Hempstead, and we became a happy family. But sadly, only lasted a couple of years. I think they took on too much. It wasn't good, and it all fell apart. So my heart got broken. I was about 13, and I have to say that overnight I developed an attitude, and overnight I just became a rebel, because I felt that I'd been hard done by, and I wanted to pay people back for my misery, basically. So I was a bit of a disturbed teenager, looking for where I fitted in. Something happened to me in my teenage years, and that was that, looking up to my older brother, he came home one day and said he wanted to be a tattooist. So I said, oh, that's good. And I gave him a part of my flesh, and I said, well, you can do a tattoo on me, and which he did. And it was awful, all right? He would admit to it being awful. And so the deal was that if he did one on me, I could do one on him. And because he hurt me, I thought, well, I'm going to hurt him too. And so we didn't know what we were doing. But as teenagers, we just were in for exploring and doing new things. I decided there was a point in my life where I was going to be a tattoo artist at the age of 20. And that took me into some darkness, basically. The people I met, I got involved in drugs. I slept around with whoever wanted me, and I was under a lot of pressure. I got people getting arrested. These were friends of mine, and they were getting arrested for petty crimes. And they were coming back to me after they'd been arrested saying, John, I got arrested for doing this, that and the other. And I said, yeah. And they're saying, the old Bill weren't interested in what I'd done. They're asking me questions about you. And I thought, what? What's going down, And I had this sense, because of most of the things I did were illegal. I was an illegal tattooist. We're dealing drugs. We're doing all sorts of stuff that ain't right. And so I thought, do I want to get nicked? Do I want to get nicked for drug dealing or as marijuana and supplying? I didn't. The reason why I didn't want to get nicked is because I was trying to get a license to be a tattooist. And so I had all this pressure on me. I decided, I thought, if the police are on my case, if they wanted to suss me out, what would they do? They'd follow me around, and they'd go to the places I go to. And so I decided, one day, I put a great big bit of paper on my drawing board where I did my tattoo designs. And I did a little circle, and I put Johnny G in the circle. And on this bit of paper, everybody that was involved in my life went on that bit of paper. It was like, this is your life. And so I put it on this bit of paper. So there were Hell's Angels in Luton. There were prostitutes in Watford. There were drug dealers all round Hemel. And I started to look at a map of my life. And I stood back. And I thought, that's a mess. That's my life. Is that what I've become at 25 years of age? And when I evaluated everything that I had, all I had at the end of the day was hatred. Hatred towards this person, hatred towards that person. And it made me a horrible person. And I could see that if something didn't happen to me, at 25, by the time I'm 40, I'm going to be a nasty bit of work. In fact, the people that I was hating, I was going to become like that myself. And I thought, do I want that to happen? And I had to be honest with myself. I said, no, I don't want to be like that. And so I thought, if there's love and there's hate, there's good and bad, there's positive and negative, up and down, yes and no. If there's a devil, there must be a God. This is what I thought. And I thought, if there is a devil, there's a God, there must be a heaven and there must be a hell. And it struck me to think these things. And I thought, I don't want the hatred in my life anymore. I want love. But I thought, if there is a God, he must be a God of love. And it was at that point that I decided that I wanted to know who he was. And one of my neighbours, new neighbours, I didn't know him, he'd moved into the area and he looked a nice guy. I liked him. I didn't know him. I thought he was a dope smoker. And I thought, yeah, he looks a cool dude. I bet, he has a puff. So I thought I'd better introduce myself to him. Because it was my manor. It was the area that I grew up in. And so one day I thought, yeah, go say hello to the guy. And we met up. And there he was, working on the car. And I said, all right. And his name turned out to be Graham. And he was a bit older than me. And we got chatting. And I found him a very, very pleasant person to talk to, with all the grief that I had in my own life. And so, but we talked about drugs. We talked about politics. We talked about tattooing. Anything I was into, he listened to me. And I thought, this guy's got something. This guy's into something that makes him tick, and it ain't astrology. So he had my total, he had my focus, and I wanted to know what made him tick. And the guy invited me in for a coffee. So I thought, right, this is my opportunity. Maybe we can have a pub together. That's a joint. There was nothing in the home to tell me that he was a Christian or what people might say religious, but that's another story, okay? But anyway, it came out of me, and I asked him, I said, are you a Christian? And he was rocked, because we hadn't talked about Jesus or anything like that. And he said, yes, I am. And at that moment, I knew something was happening. I knew my life I was out of control with exactly what was going on. And to tell you the truth, because I was looking for God, because I thought that God is love and all of that, this was 3 months or so before, I was gobsmacked that I'd met this man. And I have to say, I put my face in my hands and asked myself the question, what is going on with me? And Graham followed this up by saying, it's all about Jesus. Life is all about Jesus. It's all about getting to know who he is and what he's done for us. And he said this, because I'd spent half hour or more talking about politics, he said, this world has tried every government that it can ever possibly try to run it successfully, and they've all failed. Every one of them. And he said, until we put Jesus on the throne of our lives, we will not run anything successfully. And I just was gobsmacked thinking, this guy, I've known him not even an hour. And he's told me more truth in this time I've met him than I've heard in all my life. It took about 3 months for the penny to really drop of what was really going on. But I became a different person. Overnight, I've stopped swearing. Overnight, I'd stopped sleeping around. Overnight, I stopped tattooing, which rocked the town really. People didn't understand what really happened to Johnny G. They thought he got religious, but it's not really the case. The fact is, I got born again. And what the Bible says is, I became a new creation. And it's just that I got a relationship with Jesus. And recently, I have to say, reading the book of Kings, reading about Elijah, reading about Elisha, and it talks about these men being a man of God. And if we would let God take control over everything in our lives, we would see that he wants us to be that, a man of God, not just some old tattooist, some old decorator, but he wants us to go deep. And in doing that, he's making men out of me.